In this channel, we bring you the freshest discussions taking place in Japan's online community.
Is China's 5.2% growth real? There's a movement to estimate independently due to doubts about official statistics. According to foreign analysts, since overall investment was almost flat last year, government GDP statistics are believed to significantly exaggerate China's growth. They point out that the actual growth rate is around 1.5%.
You have to exaggerate, or you'll be disposed of, right? Japan seems to be in a similar situation. Seriously, China has a record of massacring the wealthy class, lol. That's why Chinese stocks are falling, and Japanese stocks are rising. China has long since collapsed economically. But only the Chinese people don't admit it. If there's even a slight growth, it's still good, isn't it? Everyone knows. What's the big deal? Have they disposed of financial assets related to China? Not being in the negatives is still better. The concern is whether it will lead to a society where people starve. When money stops flowing. The current problem in China is ideological. They teach in education to glorify their country, and insist it's absolutely faultless. That's why, even with policy mistakes leading to economic collapse, they won't admit it at all. Admitting a mistake would lead to downfall and death, so they're too scared to do it. As a result, China is completely unable to handle the bad debt cleanup that is most needed right now. Still, unlike Japan, they are growing positively. There are many ignorant people about China's history, especially in advanced countries. Economically, China has been collapsing for a long time. However, the ruling class doesn't care as long as the people who are heavily affected are under control. Following the traditional history of China, Japan also hypes up news and later revises it downwards. So China doesn't matter. 30% of China's GDP is related to real estate. Even with the real estate bubble collapsing, achieving 5% growth is impossible. The increase in electric vehicles is causing GDP to rise. Other factors are subtle, so it might be around 2%. Local governments themselves don't even know where they were exaggerating. Naturally, the central government, which consolidates this information, is even more clueless. Japan's GDP was also like that. Japan has seen the aftermath of the real estate bubble bursting and ended up creating enormous bad debts. It's probably not going well for a while. What would be the first public service to stop? Maybe garbage collection? It definitely looks negative. Reduction and unpaid wages of local government employees. Hundreds of thousands, millions losing jobs due to foreign companies withdrawing. Real estate bubble collapse. China surpassed Japan in car exports last year. But there are no jobs for new graduates. And the youth unemployment rate is around 40%, right? Zhao Gao is claiming to be the second coming of Mao. Who would you choose as the first emperor? Lol. People have been saying things are strange for about 20 years. And nobody believes it now. But they are actually growing. 30 years ago, it was really just bicycles and counterfeit money. But now it's electric bikes and electronic money. China will probably disappear and cease to exist in 10 years. China's constitution states that the Communist Party leads the Chinese people. So, even if the economy is in decline, they instruct to fabricate GDP. What a wonderful leader. The problem is that the mass media keeps broadcasting China's official announcements. Reporting official statements is fine. But they should investigate and report the results independently, saying, however, nobody trusts the general headquarters announcement. Even the Chinese people, lol. I saw on YouTube that all the tenants in local shopping streets went out of business. It really feels like post-bubble Japan. I always think there is a certain layer of people who believe in China's general headquarters announcement. In recent years, major economic data is not disclosed. Inconvenient data is not disclosed, and the publicly released statistical information doesn't add up. There's no reliable source of information. The problem is that there's no way to verify this. This is not only a problem with China but with all countries worldwide. China is only getting attention because they have been providing numbers that are too disconnected from reality. The government's announced numbers serve as indicators for investment decisions. So if they deviate significantly from reality, it's a big problem. But stock prices can't be manipulated. Looking at the one-sided decline in the stock prices in Shanghai and Hong Kong. Except for a brief period after the end of the pandemic, investors all know it's over for China. There's a law, forgot the name. If the Chinese government demands, domestic factories have to provide all data. With that, the world's factory collapsed instantly. It's impossible to produce in a country where patents and technology are openly stolen. Lol. During the Cold War, the Soviet Union did the same thing. They inflated economic indicators and falsely promoted the strength of the communist economy. In the end, it collapsed and fell apart. It never used to be below 6% back in the day. Lol. China is no longer being looked at by the West, even in terms of personal feelings. Made in China is rapidly disappearing. Once China is no longer the world's factory, growth is over. They've been growing by depending on Western countries so far. There's a research result comparing the brightness of each country's night, captured by artificial satellites with GDP. The more authoritarian the country, the darker it is compared to the announced GDP. They're bluffing. The brightness of China is 30% darker than the announced results. Even though the national character is to brightly light up the neon lights in the city. I wonder what Li Keqiang thinks in the afterlife. The residents of this country will remain foolish for thousands of years. Well, it hasn't changed since the Great Leap Forward policy. Xi Jinping seems to love Mao Zedong. So it's similar that his subordinates fear and don't provide accurate information. Lol.
Did you find this video interesting? We'll keep bringing you fun topics from Japan's online community. Please subscribe to the channel and drop some comments.